Hello, and welcome to the ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. Over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a listener that I can barely begin to express how much I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you being here, as I know you have a lot of options. As Listen Notes, the podcast platform says, there are about 168.9 million plus podcasts you could choose from. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, as indeed it is just me on the podcast outside, at least for the initial episodes. All substance, no muss, no fuss, no fluff, no fancy or flashy high production inserts or intro, just straight to the key discussion points. A show that will look at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian United States constitutionalist lens. Hence, obviously, the ChristiTutionalist Politics title. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and last name is spelled L-E-N-A-R-D, like most pronounce Leonard, but without the O, an author of a very non-traditional but Christian, nonetheless Christian book, co-host of Savaged Unfiltered podcast, and for purposes of this show, most notably a blogger for thelibertybeacon.com, from which most of the content for the show will be derived. These are not going to be long, drawn-out episodes. I just want something short for you to be able to tune into, get the highlights, food for thought. You can then delve deeper into via my online articles and reach your own conclusion. And as Graham Norton would say on his late night talk show, let's get on with the show. Season 1, episode 3 already? Where's the time going? Right? Thank you. Yes, this is indeed only the 3rd episode. Thank you for tuning in. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it listening to. So thank you so much for listening to this one. And for those of you who may be getting a sneak peek behind the scenes video version of this audio podcast, yes, thank you, Michael Gardner and Shaky over at Savaged Unfiltered. This is a background that I will be using in the upcoming Savaged Unfiltered podcast that I'm co-host, that I'm co-opting for ChristiTutionalist Politics recording here. Of course, audio only. Most people won't see it, again, unless you're seeing the sneak peek behind the scenes. Season 1, episode 3, Remembering Freedom and Our Rights Beyond the 4th of July. Today's main topic is Saturday's thelibertybeacon.com upcoming piece. Actually, we'll be hitting the same time that this hits the audio airwaves on July the 8th. Remembering Freedoms and Rights Beyond the 4th of July holiday. This hits the audio airwaves on July the 8th. Remembering Freedoms and Rights Beyond the 4th of July holiday. All right? Oh, there's an all right. I promise I'll get better. I'll pay attention and not do that. Almost did it again. Also, our first guest. This will be a short segment of the show because Pastor Robert Thibodeau will be joining us as part of Season 1, Episode 3 program. Wasn't expecting any guest anytime soon, but Pastor Robert, my friend, was gracious enough to say, sure, I'll come on, be your first guest. So we'll have him on. But last week was ranked choice voting. I hope you checked in on that for Season 1, Episode 2, and the admission that Yeah, we're not going to be monthly. We're going to be weekly every weekend because there's just far too much going on. And the birdies in the last episode, I hope you heard them. They're quiet right now, so doubt you hear them. And also, I want to point out next week will be a part 2 of the Remembering Freedoms and Rights Beyond the 4th of July holiday on thelibertybeacon.com, honoring all that serve this week and next week, especially those who gave the full final measure, sacrificing to defend our rights, our freedoms, our security, our safety in our own communities. And also, I want to again say what an honor it is that you tuned in. And I also hope to be able to honor my father, rest in peace, Thaddeus M. Leonard, also known Ted Leonard Jr., and the Polka Kings. The audio portion, I hope to be able to tack on from their album, the tune, Our Little Polish Genie. Well, polka music certainly has nothing to do with this, but since we're honoring the birth of this nation, I'm honoring you as a guest here tuning in. Thank you again so much. Going to take the chance to honor my father, from whom I got my creative genes. If not for him, and yeah, I dabbled in music in the 70s and 80s, but went on more so to just write online articles and books, and Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, and How to Write a Book and Get It Published, Hints, Tips, and Techniques, my first 2 internationally available books. But remembering our freedom, again, I want to honor those who have given of themselves. Our Leos out there over the 4th of July weekend trying to protect and serve. My book, Terror Strikes, is partly dedicated to Leos, to the military, to all who are patriots, who want to preserve, actually now, restore our American Republic, right? I came up with the hashtag ROAR, not the Katy Perry video, but if that's what helps keep it in your brain, that's a great thing. ROAR. Let your voice be heard, Mama Bears, at the school board meetings. Help restore our American Republic. We must do that. And part 2 of Remembering Our Freedoms is going to have a segment from the Nextdoor app, which is kind of like a Facebook, but meant more so strictly for local neighborhood watch type things. There was someone on social media that complained about early fireworks, and I talk about that more, and we will talk about that more next week for part 2 of Remembering Our Rights and Freedoms. This week's article, again, sets that up. I broke it into 2 pieces, kind of like a prior Remembering the Fallen beyond Memorial Day. We've got to remember these things beyond the one weekend holiday that's set up. We are losing our nation. We are losing our purpose. We are losing our values and principles because a lot of people are just coasting through life, and these holidays mean nothing to them but a 3-day weekend. And that's sad. I say in an online piece about the need to repeal the holidays, the official declaration of making federal holidays moved to Mondays to create the 3-day weekends. I think we should repeal that act. The holiday should be on the actual date of the holiday, no matter what day it falls, so we remember what the holiday is supposed to be about, not just about mattress sales or barbecues. things like that. We need to get back to the point and purpose of these holidays, the remembrance and honoring what they are supposed to stand for. Another thing, going to be kind of a last thing, as again, this segment is going to be very short, so we can get to our guest and we can get to, hopefully, you won't be able to see it on the video behind the scenes. I can't tack the audio onto the video with the software I have, but the audio portion of the broadcast hopefully will have our little Polish genie from Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings. But I wanted to mention to you a movie I watch every 4th of July weekend. It is now, of course, past the 4th, but it's still not too late. Please, I beg of you to watch the film called An American Carol. Now, you might guess, yes, it's based a spoof, a play on A Christmas Carol, which is about Michael, oh, I forget the character's name right off the hand here now, but Chris Farley's brother plays a Michael Moore-like left-wing propagandist who is embarking on an endeavor, if I could get the word out of my mouth correctly, to cancel the 4th of July holiday. Now, this movie came out before all the recent cancel culture garbage. So, An American Carol, which you can find online even via YouTube, buy or rent there. Some places you can even stream it free since it's an older movie. But An American Carol really is way more relevant today than the actual time that it came out. So please, I ask that you go watch An American Carol, share it with your friends, and perhaps also rent, if you don't own, Dinesh D'Souza's America. Imagine the world without her. There are so many on the left trying to destroy this nation without the realization of, without this nation, the shambles this world would be in right now. Without America to help, to not be the policeman of the world, those days of America alone, I'm sorry, are gone. I wish we could be Fortress America like we could be when our nation was founded and first started. But with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, those oceans no longer protect us. We are indeed part of a world community, whether we like it or not. That doesn't mean we then embark on a new world order or a global governance. That's absolutely resist it. We must retain our sovereignty. But that doesn't mean that we can ignore what happens elsewhere, because unfortunately, it does affect us at home, either economically or militarily, potentially at times. So there is that. And with that, I am going to close so we can get to the interview. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. Again, I hope you enjoyed your 4th of July weekend. Please remember, our rights and freedoms must be celebrated and fought for every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We cannot neglect them. We cannot take them for granted. As Reagan said, freedom is no more than one generation away from being erased from existence. Those viewing this show via video, limited at the time of this recording to my Rumble and YouTube channels, will notice an obvious segue from the regularly recorded portion of the show and this subsegment. Indeed, you see, if viewing versus listening, a different green screen background differentiating the segments. And I hope the thunder outside, since it's storming, the day of this recording doesn't bleed on and be too distracting. As been saying, this is a low-key podcast. Haven't converted the spare bedroom computer / office room into a soundproof padded studio yet, nor bleed from the neighbor's sump pump being installed. A lot of jackhammering going on. And they have the side door open to vent fumes and circulate some air while they work. And I tell you all this partly for you to kind of get to know me more, and this a personal me and you together friendly podcast. And yes, while I pride myself and honesty I offer that this show will be unscripted, I will have notes. I'm cheating with a script on this segment, okay? Anyway, the reason for the transition being I'm bringing in ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast first ever guest, pre-recorded Thursday, June 29th, 2023, as this may appear on later seasons. I may bring it as a flashback. So please welcome my friend, Pastor Robert Thibodeau. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Joseph, it's blessed, man. I appreciate your invite, and it is a blessing to be able to come on and share with your audience.
Thank you. Thank you again as I joked before, I know you're busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, as the saying goes, so a little off script there. Rather than me reading dry introductory bio, how about you give us your background beyond the obvious, you're a real man, continue to identify as a male you've always been, no threat to Biden cabinet buffoon Sam Brinton will want to steal your luggage. There are no dresses or pumps in there, right?
That's right. That's right.
And tell about the many irons you had in the fire, including 3 active podcasts over the last couple of decades.
All right. Well, quick background. I did 12 years in the military as a cavalry officer. Got out, had my own business for a while, decided I got bored with it and became a cop. And that was my new career choice. Now, I was born again during this time frame, and we, went to ministry school and completed all that. And then 2007, I was injured on the job and had to go through a bunch of surgery, 32 different medical procedures. And over the course of that time, they started talking about, we may have to make you retire. And that's when I got praying, Lord, I'm getting too old to keep starting this stuff over again. What does he want me to do? And it was just so clear, begin a weekly 30-minute online radio program. Now, you have to understand my background and my technology capabilities at that time.
Of the lack thereof, right?
Yeah. I had to have help checking my email account. Okay. And, so this was like way over my head. But I was recovering from a knee surgery, couldn't walk around that much. So I'm sitting in front of the computer screen to say, well, let me go to the great savior, Google, and figure out how to do it. And my first radio program was me talking on a flip cell phone, remember them? And a free website.
Called
talkshoe.com.
Kind of like my low-key ChristiTutionalist podcast beginning. Cheating using Zoom. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Use what you can work, right? Well, I started getting a following, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is kind of cool. And about 6 months into that, I got approached by a Christian AM radio station conglomerate based in South Carolina. They said, we heard your podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was, let alone that I had one, right? And they said, we heard your podcast. Would you like to be on nationwide AM radio? And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. I mean, this is the Lord's doing. It's marvelous in my eyes, right? Catch was I had to pay for it. Just little tiny details you learn as you go. But the normal retirement process for our department was 12 to 18 months for a medical retirement. So I said, okay, I'll do this for a year and, use this as the baseline and the platform, get it built up, and then I'll retire, and that'll be what I do. Well, about 6 months in, and it was expensive, but 6 months into that, I got a letter in the mail one day that said, congratulations on your retirement. Now you're living on half your income. And I still got this big radio budget. So I knew I wasn't going to renew that contract. So about that time, the Lord put on our heart to start a Christian online radio station and to make it so affordable, no pastor could not say no. So he gave me a list of 10 things that we were supposed to put on the radio, have on a radio station, have the capability of doing. So I went back to the great Savior, Google, to try and find one already doing it that I could pattern myself after. Nobody was doing it. This would have been 2009. Nobody was doing it. Nobody. iHeart, show you when this was at, iHeart Radio had just started and they were only doing music. Right? So
I know the time frames our memories play tricks on us. We think these things have been around for decades, and they haven't. I'm a former IT guy. I go back to the 300 baud dial-up modem days, before the internet actually existed. And even that really wasn't all that long ago.
That's right. Yeah, my first computer was a Tandy 286, and I crashed that. So, so there you go. But we we couldn't find anybody to pattern ourselves after. So my son-in-law, he's an IT guy, so he said, let's build it, and we did, and we tested it all out. Worked great. And we launched what's now Evangelism Radio on October 4th, 2010. It's been going 24/7 ever since. We've got major ministries. If I mentioned their names, you'd know who they were. We got some of them on there. We got, we cater to the smaller churches and ministries. And we've been going 24/7 now. This is our 13th year. And we were rated at one time #1 in the world by shoutcast.com for Christian talk. And the podcast, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, that's a podcast #1, evolved out of that just for me as a way to interview our broadcasters. But, it wasn't really a priority at that time. And then I got introduced by a publicist to a Christian author, such as yourself. And, all of a sudden the total dynamics of the podcast changed. We started doing authors, recording artists, CEOs, nonprofit leaders, business owners, online coaches, across the gamut, but all of them are Christian, and that's what they have in common, but their stories are all different and what they're doing is different. And that podcast has taken off like a rocket. We just recently, about a week or two ago, went over 200,000 downloads, and we're rated in the top 0.5% now of all podcasts worldwide with that podcast. And I started a faith-based business podcast just to help people promote their faith-based business. It could be, think Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, it's a secular business, they're Christian themed, and that's what the owners, that's what they focus on is their faith, but it's a secular setting. Well, those are the types of businesses we promote on the Faith-Based Business Podcast. And then I did a lot of interviews with all this stuff. The COVID pandemic really started it off. And then everything you see happening in the news right now.
Yeah, I want to interrupt for a second about you were saying about the Christian base, but still in the secular world operations. Yeah, because boycotts are in the news, right? Bud Light and Target and all that. We also need to boycott, right? We need to know there is an app called Align Us I'm on. I'm also on Mammoth Nation, right? Christian or conservative sites to let you know who are the fellow Christian or conservative businesses to promote. I'm sorry, I wanted to interject that.
No, that's fine, because that's the type of stuff we need to support. And that's the purpose of the Faith-Based Business Podcast. To put that out there, let people know this is safe. And then, like I say, with all the stuff going on in the news, we start getting a lot of guests coming on, minister guests talking about prophecy. So we started this year Revelation Warning Podcast, and that podcast has just taken off. We're at like 50,000 downloads.
And already. Thank you for having me on both Kingdom and Revelations. Yeah,
that's right. and like I said, that is a very popular topic right now, end times and prophecy and stuff like that. And it reflects because of the amount of traffic we're getting on that. And, so those are the 3 platforms that I publish on almost every week. Sometimes we may not have a guest for the faith-based one, so it goes 2 weeks or something like that. But as soon as we get them in, we put it out there. The Kingdom Crossroads podcast publishes almost daily. 5 days a week. Sometimes it's 4.
Now
But,
that's a lot.
Yeah. We just published also a couple weeks ago, episode 1,300, and all of them are interviews.
Yeah,
we did
oh
over
my.
900 interviews.
Yeah, I was planning originally to just do monthly podcast updates, but so much happens, and I write for thelibertybeacon.com every week, every Saturday, so it's easy to know I will have material
That's right.
weekly based on that. So I upgraded. But again, thank you for joining me as back to the script. Again, thank you for joining me as the first ever ChristiTutionalist politics podcast show guest. Not an interview, but I am very intrigued by your recently started FaithCasters project.
Amen.
And really want you to be able to share that with my audience and be able to promote it. Please give us the outline and hopes for that, as well as the Podcasters for Christ projects.
Okay. Well, the Podcasters for Christ, I'll do that first because it's easiest. I had all these different podcasts, and because of my length of time in podcasts, I've been asked a lot about, I want to start a podcast. How do I do it? And so, I kept getting asked the same questions over and over again.
That's just like with me in interviews for terror strikes coming soon to a city near you, like you did. Come back and talk about writing and publishing. Hence, how to write a book and get it published. Hence, tips and techniques followed.
So what we did, we put together a coaching program, and it's called podcast-training.com. And then we have FaithCasters coming on board, and the interviews, the radio station. And one day the Lord said, and my marketing budget, which is very limited, I was splitting it up amongst all these things. And one day the Lord said, how many businesses are you running for? I said, 4. And he said, why don't you put them all under one hood, promote that, and then people can pick which one they want to go to. And I'm like, hey, you're pretty smart.
You are now a conglomeration, right?
That's right. So Podcasters for Christ is our main hood. And you go there, and then you can pick where you want to go, whether it's for training, radio, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, or now FaithCasters, which just launched. FaithCasters. One of the things that helped me grow our podcast to where I'm at is I subscribe to many different, basically newsletter type things that promote podcasters. But you had to pay for each one, and although I got grandfathered in on many of them, so my fee is like $5 a month. I'm paying like $30 a month for all of them. I went back when we're getting ready to launch FaithCasters just to see what new people be charged, and some of them are $40, $45 a month. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm glad I did it when I did it. But we wanted to make a platform like that just for Christians, because all these other ones, you're lumped into what's called religion and spirituality. So you're in there with all the different faiths, including Islam and Buddhism and Confucianism,
probably even Scientology, which I would not call a religion if my life depended on it.
Sometimes I'm listed right in between 2 Wiccans, stuff like that. So I decided, the Lord decided that we were going to go ahead and create our own Christian newsletter to connect podcasters and guests together. And our tagline for FaithCasters is great Christian podcasters connecting with great Christian guests. And that's what we do. We launched it just recently, and it's already starting to get some traction. And, I'm excited about it. And we kept the prices very low. Okay. And you can go to the website, faithcasters.org, and you can check it all out. Use Joseph's link to get in there. He's going to put the link in the show notes below, so it's easy for you to do. Just click it and you'll be taken right there. And then, the newsletter itself is free. You don't have to join anything to get the information.
Okay? A very important point. And then there are other paid things.
If you want to add yourself to our listings, that's what you pay for. But if you would just want to get the newsletter, because we feature, several hosts and several guests looking for hosts in each issue, and it'll be published bi-weekly starting off. And you just go there, register for the newsletter. It comes into your email box every 2 weeks. And on the opposite weeks, we're going to highlight one podcaster, one guest, to send that out.
Oh,
So
that'll
you get
be
that
cool.
every week.
But as to signing up for the paid items, buy now while it's, less expensive, right? Because you, like everybody, we all start off with our pricing lower to start the traffic, to start the buzz, to hopefully get word of mouth.
Yep.
And then as time grows and our costs also go up,
That's the
we
whole
have
thing.
to adjust up our pricing to others.
Yep.
So get on board now. Get
That's
on
right.
board the train before you have to try to jump on at 100 miles an hour. But
That's
I
right.
am curious, do you know or had the chance to work with Rabbi Kurt Schneider, a Messianic rabbi and creator of Discovering the Jewish Jesus podcast and part of the Jews for Jesus crew, for those who have not heard of him? I copied you on an email I sent him just the other day, as Schneider happens to be somewhat of a neighbor to me. Well, not the next city over, nor even the next county over. Rabbi Schneider is indeed a fellow Michiganian nearby, and I've reached out to him wanting to work with him on his Taking the Rainbow Back. All
Amen.
7 of the colors from the 6-color fake rainbow Alphabet Mafia, as I call them. And I like to say, I have gay and lesbian friends. We get along just fine. They're the old school tolerance and acceptance crowd versus today's rainbow Alphabet Mafia, as I call them, who are gay-tivists engaging in gay-tivism. There is a major difference from that of just wanting tolerance and acceptance, love me as I am. Final judgment is between them and the Lord, not me and them, right? And an advocate engaging in grooming and wanting to legalize pedophilia. Completely different. Completely different.
Amen.
But anyway, that have tried to co-opt and corrupt the rainbow message. In fact, I'm wearing, if you can see it, let me move this out so I can make sure I got it on camera, the shirt, including the Genesis 9:16 and Revelations 4:3 biblical references on the shirt. I am hoping that the two of you together may be able to cross promote, as we're doing right now today, as I am trying to help us cross promote together. Your thoughts?
Amen. Absolutely. I just, like this past couple weeks have been a little busy with the launch.
There's that one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest thing again. Yeah.
But we're he's on my list of people to contact. Put it like.
Yeah. I mean, he's Christ-centered, so I think he fits in and would work. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. It's going a little longer than I anticipated to try to stay within my parameters of things. But thanks for your time today. I appreciate you taking the time to be my first ever guest. And again, hopefully down the road, we'll probably use this as the flashback segment when there's a larger audience to see it.
Amen. Well, be sure they click the link down below in the show notes and get signed up for the newsletter.
All right. Take care, brother. God bless. Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. And please tune in to Savage Unfiltered podcast, of which I am a co-host. And be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. Indeed, just me on the podcast side end of things. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, as I know you have over 168.9 million plus podcasts out there you could choose from. Thank you again so much for tuning into mine. Take care. God bless.